President Trump's ex-national security advisor is trying to cash in with a tell-all book after refusing to testify in Trump's impeachment trial. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. We all know the president is a venal, corrupt, self-serving maniac. This much is plain to everyone. Hell, it was the original title of this show. You don't have to peel back the layers with Trump. There's one layer. It's a thick epidermis of Botox-infused pancake skin wrapped around a dark, howling void where a soul should be. Yesterday, for example, he called in for yet another televised therapy session with Sean Hannity, where he once again repeated his insane lie that the coronavirus pandemic, which has now killed more Americans than World War I, which is growing in about 20 states and which is spiking at alarming levels in places like Arizona and Texas, will just magically disappear.
It's fading away. It's going to fade away. Nobody knew that it was going to be that contagious. Nobody had any idea it was going to be this kind of contagious.
Honestly, at this point, who's the audience for this? I mean, obviously, those two guys will TiVo it and watch it back later that night while they talk on the phone, but who else? Mr. President, you crushed that answer. Well, you crushed that question. Not only is this a flagrant and reckless lie, it's not even new. When you buy the new Steely Dan album, do you really want the track list to say Reelin' in the Years remastered 12 times? And full disclosure, if they were remastered as 12 different versions of Reelin' in the Years, I mean, I guess I'd buy it. Wait, are Fox News viewers just Steely Dan fans, but for Trump? Trump has repeated a version of this same lie dozens of times. He's like a big-mouth Billy Bass of bull.
It's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
Look, I know Trump's supporters will never budge from supporting him, but are they really sitting there watching the TV saying, he's right, no one knew how contagious it was? My buddy told me you could only catch it by licking a toilet seat under a full moon, so we all know who Trump is. Every tell-all book written by a former Trump aide about their time in the administration is the exact same. Some of the details differ, but they all say the same thing. The most powerful man in the world is a mentally incontinent man-toddler with farina brain who only cares about himself. The one exception is Sean Spicer's book, which I think is called The Beefing? No, wait, it was called Tales from a Podium Putt? You know what I think it was? Stinky Taylor, Stupid Guy. And yes, that was a tortured Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy joke that almost worked. You know what? If you think that joke worked, why don't you text 1 to your grandmother? And if you think it didn't work, text 2 to your grandmother. You know, either way, I think your grandmother will be happy to hear from you. Point is, if you're looking for Sean Spicer's book, you can find it at Barnes & Noble in the doorstop section. Anyway, every tell-all Trump book confirms again and again how uniquely cretinous our president is. And they're all equally, pointless. We don't need tell-all books. We have a tell-all president. What he does behind closed doors, he also does behind open doors and windows, into microphones and his executive orders. It would only be interesting if behind closed doors he was eloquent and curious and not racist. Then there'd be some all to tell. And the same thing is true of ex-National Security Advisor John Bolton's new book, except Bolton's book also proves how loathsome and duplicitous its author is. You might remember Bolton as the lunatic who's called for bombing like half a dozen countries, who enthusiastically cheered on the Iraq War as a member of the Bush administration, and who helped dismantle the pandemic response unit as a member of the Trump administration. Bolton has been a key figure in some of the biggest disasters of the last 20 years. I'm pretty sure he was Mr. Mustacheles in the movie Cats, at least before they airbrushed out the ass you burnt. Bolton hasn't expressed so much as a scintilla of regret for all the horrific stuff he's been involved in. In fact, he repeatedly went on TV for years and claimed that the Iraq War, which killed hundreds of thousands of people, was actually a success, and said the only thing he would have done differently in hindsight was leave the Iraqis on their own sooner.
I think the overthrow of Saddam Hussein, that military action, was a resounding success. I think the mistakes that were made subsequently, setting up the Coalition Provisional Authority and others that followed from it, are lessons about what to do after a regime is overthrown.
What I would have done differently is much earlier, much sooner after the overthrow, given it back to the Iraqis, and I'll exaggerate for effect here, but given them a copy of the Federalist Papers and said, good luck.
Spoken like a true psycho. You're like a guy who goes to a house party, gets drunk, vomits, passes out in his vomit, his pants, wakes up, then gives you an Emily Post book of etiquette and says, you might want to read this. So Bolton has never faced consequences for any of the calamities he helped bring about. Now, rather than answer the call when his country needed him, he's cashing in with a $2 million book deal. And in that way, he's exactly like Trump and all the other ghouls in the modern Republican Party. He burned everything down, stuffed his hands in the till, grabbed as much cash as he could, and left everyone else to clean up the mess. Honestly, Trump should be proud. A man after my own enlarged heart. And I think if we listen closely, we're going to have a beat coming up. Did you hear that? There's going to be a few more minutes. And sure enough, Bolton's tedious and condescending book does in fact confirm every bad thing you already thought about Trump, including the impeachment case Bolton could have helped with months ago.
Bolton says Trump did not want to send funds to Ukraine until they sent him dirt on Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, just as he was accused of doing and acquitted by the Republicans in the Senate. Bolton says Trump told the Chinese premier to go ahead and build concentration camps for the country's Muslim minority. He also says Trump pleaded explicitly face-to-face with Xi, China's premier, to, quote, ensure he'd win the coming election.
So not only did the President of the United States extort multiple countries to help him cheat in the 2020 election and encourage a totalitarian regime to engage in ethnic cleansing against a persecuted religious minority, but Bolton witnessed it all, but did nothing. I pray that one day these two get to share a cell together in The Hague. It would make for a great buddy comedy. These guys are a real Turner and douche. Be like a modern-day Perfect Strangers. And yes, in this situation, Trump would be the Balki Bartokomous character. In my country, we drink water with both hands. Don't be ridiculous. So let's see, we got Perfect Strangers in there tonight. Steely Dan, Turner and Hooch, and Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. So I think we've more than taken care of our teen viewers this evening. Also, I can't wait for all the fake China hawks in the GOP like Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio to pretend they haven't read Trump's comments. Cruz is going to grow a beard so thick reporters won't be able to find him. And yes, Bolton's book is also full of the typically embarrassing details you'd expect to hear about life in the Trump White House. For example, you might remember that Trump coined the nickname Little Rocket Man for Kim Jong-un. But then, after their summit in Singapore, Trump pretended the name was a compliment and tried to send Kim a gift. In the months following the summit, Bolton described Trump's inordinate interest in Secretary of State Mike Pompeo delivering an autographed copy of Elton John's Rocket Man on CD to Kim during Pompeo's follow-up visit to North Korea. Trump had used the term Little Rocket Man to criticize the North Korean leader, but subsequently tried to convince Kim that it was a term of affection. Trump didn't seem to realize Pompeo hadn't actually seen Kim Jong-un during the trip. Asking if Pompeo had handed the CD, wrote Bolton, Pompeo had not. Getting this CD to Kim remained a high priority for several months. Okay, first of all, I love that it was a CD in the year 2018. Knowing Trump, his plan was to get Kim Jong-un to pay a penny for that and 11 other CDs and then have him on the hook for the rest of his life. Classic Columbia House. Second, it's so weird to give someone an autographed copy of a CD that isn't yours. For Christmas one year, I gave my mom Wolf Hall, but I didn't sign it. So a con artist warmonger is cashing in by detailing horrific abuses of powers by a con artist president subverting our democracy, and all the while the Republican Party's just standing by letting it happen. We're all watching right now as our institutions fail us in a time of acute crisis. Police are beating protesters with impunity, a deadly pandemic is ravaging the nation, and unemployment is higher than it's been in a century. And many people who thought the government would be there to protect them are learning that it's not. It's like being on an airplane and assuming the oxygen mask will be there in an emergency, and then you hit some turbulence, and the only thing that comes down is a voucher that says, "We know you have many choices when you fly. Thank you for choosing us, and please, rest in peace." And in many ways, the various crises we're experiencing right now are connected, in at least one sense. The structural inequality and the institutional failures laid bare by the coronavirus pandemic helped set the stage, in part, for the unprecedented mass demonstrations against systemic racism and police brutality.
I think we were primed for this moment by the coronavirus, by a lot of the American mythology being laid bare. One, the idea that we can sort of be relentlessly upwardly mobile, and that white folks have, sort of their grasp on the American dream when the economy shut down and people realized they were 2 paychecks away from destitution and the government may not be there for them. There was a sense of vulnerability and a physical vulnerability. And then, as we saw, the coronavirus made people lean into their neighbors. Once you tap into that source of vulnerability, interdependence, humanity, and an awareness of the inequality that the coronavirus has exposed, you're primed for something big.
She's right. The pandemic made the failures of our institutions very real for tens of millions of people, and in turn, it led to a deep sense of community solidarity. People had to look out for each other because they realized the government wouldn't. By checking on neighbors, supporting local businesses, and liking your friends' Instagram pics of their janky banana bread, even though they've already posted like half a dozen banana bread pics and they're just not getting any better. You're overmixing the batter, Steve, and your bananas aren't ripe enough. It breaks my heart to tell you that, Steve. Your bananas aren't ripe enough, bro. And you're embarrassing yourself on social media. People are discovering that their government just isn't there for them, thanks in part to years of concerted efforts by the moneyed class and the corporate elite to hollow it out. If every year You pump trillions into corporate tax cuts in the military and cut everything else, you're going to end up with a country where millions of people don't have jobs or health care, billionaires are doing great, and everyone else is met with tear gas and riot gear. I mean, think of what else we could be spending money on right now instead of tanks for local police departments. And even if you really want to spend the money on tanks, the least you could do is give them to nurses and postal workers instead of the police. If instead of a tiny little mail car, every postal worker had a tank, they'd make damn sure you got that Pottery Barn catalog. In fact, one small thing we could keep spending money on are the additional unemployment benefits provided by the coronavirus stimulus package. As you might recall, the bill added $600 to unemployment benefits, which Republicans tried to get rid of at the time, a move that enraged Bernie Sanders.
And now I find that some of my Republican colleagues are very distressed. They're very upset that somebody who's making $10, $12 an hour might end up with a paycheck for 4 months more than they received last week. Oh my God, the universe is collapsing. Imagine that. Somebody who's making $12 an hour, now like the rest of us, faces an unprecedented economic crisis with the $600 on top of their regular unemployment check, might be making a few bucks more for 4 months. Oh my word, will the universe survive?
Say what you will about Bernie, but we really missed an opportunity for some grade A old man sarcasm in the debates with Trump. Oh, the media is media. How will the universe survive? You know, what we used to do when someone was mean to us back in my day, we did tweet. We rode our bikes down to the sand lot. I charged them to a game of baseball. On Sunday, Trump economic advisor Larry Kudlow said the Trump administration would cut off the additional $600 because it somehow disincentivizes people from going back to work.
The federal government program for unemployed Americans gives them an extra $600 a week in benefits, but it's slated to run out in 6 weeks. And now, obviously, the health effects and economic effects are going to last longer than that. Should American families that are receiving these extra $600 checks right now expect that money to stop in August?
Well, unemployment benefits will not stop in August. What may well stop, and this reform is necessary. I mean, almost all businesses, frankly, on both sides of the aisle, or mostly both sides of the aisle, understand that the $600 plus up, that's above the state unemployment benefits that they will continue to receive, is in effect a disincentive. I mean, we're paying people not to work. It's better than their salaries would get.
I don't know. I think that says less about unemployment benefits and more about how little we pay workers, you senile business egg. Also, I love he thinks all these people are on a salary. Oh, so you're a driver for Papa John's? What is that, $100K a year in stock options? I bet you're getting stock options, I presume. So you think we're paying people not to go to work? We're paying them because our sociopathic government failed to protect them from a deadly disease, and our barbaric capitalist system has rendered them expendable. Not everyone can spend their day golfing and watching TV like the guy you work for. If we're paying anyone not to work, it's him. The only way Trump could watch more TV is if golf courses started putting tiny screens in the bottom of the cup. The people at the top are stuffing their hands in the till trying to cash out before everything burns down, and meanwhile, they won't even let you keep an extra $600 a week during a pandemic they failed to stop. I gotta be honest, sometimes it really does feel like
the universe is collapsing.
This has been a closer look. As New York struggles to reopen, remember that we're still a city in crisis, and City Harvest has been stepping up to meet the increased need. If you're watching this online, you can hit the donate button. Stay safe, wash your hands. We love you.